we begin, we want to let our listeners know that this episode will feature sensitive discussions about pediatric cancer, including the emotional and physical challenges families face. Today, we will feature the story of Charlie Landers, as told by his mother, Lisa. Charlie is the honorary CEO of the Charlie Landers Foundation, and he fought valiantly despite his grim prognosis. We are sharing his story with the goal of raising awareness for pediatric cancer. However, we understand this may be difficult for some to hear. Please listen with care, and thank you for joining us in supporting this important cause. If you would like more information, want to get involved, or would like to make a donation, please visit the Charlie Landers Foundation online at www.thecharlielandersfoundation.org.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Motivational Mic. I'm your host, Jacob. At 16 years old, I'm a cancer survivor and amputee, and I'm here to share stories of resilience, hope, and inspiration. Before I get started, I would love to thank you for joining me on this journey. After battling a rare bone cancer and overcoming significant challenges, I've learned that our stories have the power to uplift and motivate others. Through this podcast, I aim to bring you powerful stories from incredible people who have faced adversity and emerged stronger. I want to provide a safe place where everyone feels accepted. Whether you're seeking inspiration or looking for advice on overcoming obstacles, you're in the right place. I can assure you that. Let's dive in and get inspired together.
Each year, thousands of families hear the devastating words, "Your child has cancer." But amid the fear and uncertainty, there's a hope that comes from awareness, research, and community support. This September, during Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month, we come together to shine a light on the courage of these young warriors and their families. Pediatric cancer doesn't discriminate. It can affect any child at any time. But by raising awareness, we can make a difference. We can push for more funding, better treatments, and ultimately, a cure. It starts with education, understanding, and action. We encourage you to get involved, share stories, donate, and support the organizations fighting this battle every day. Every voice, every action counts. Let's stand together for these brave children, honoring their strength and ensuring that no child faces cancer alone. Join us in spreading hope, raising awareness, and making a real impact this Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month. Together, we can light the way to a brighter future.
Welcome back to another episode of the Motivational Mic. Today, I'm honored to welcome Lisa Nelson Landers, the president of the Charlie Landers Foundation. Lisa is not only the driving force behind the foundation, but is also the proud mother of Charlie Landers, the foundation's honorary CEO and a true Ewing Sarcoma warrior. Charlie fought bravely against Ewing Sarcoma, and in his memory, Lisa has dedicated herself 100% to furthering his mission, supporting those battling this disease and relentlessly pursuing hope for a cure. Lisa's unwavering commitment and passion inspire countless others, and I'm excited to learn more about her journey and the incredible work she's doing through the foundation. Hey Lisa, how are you today?
Hi Jacob, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Before we get started, I just want to thank you for joining me on this episode of the Motivational Mic. It means a lot to me.
Well, I'm so honored that you wanted to speak to me, and I'm so happy that you reached out to me. And I know we spoke a little bit beforehand, but I just wanted to just say how, as a mom and just as, a parent and a caregiver of someone dealing with what you went through, I'm so proud of what you're doing, and I'm so happy to see how well you're doing. And I think this is such a pay it forward moment that you're really creating, and I just give you a lot of credit. So great job.
Yeah, thank you so much. Definitely want to spread awareness on this podcast. That's the goal.
Love it.
So, can you share the story of Charlie's journey and his fight against Ewing sarcoma? And can you also explain what type of cancer Ewing sarcoma is?
Yes. So, I'll try to I'll give you the light version. I'll try to abbreviate as much as I can. I could talk for days about Charlie and his journey, as I'm sure you could too. And there's so many pieces to it. But when Charlie was 12, he was in 7th grade, probably around the middle of the year when kind of pre-baseball season was kicking in. Charlie was really into sports. And I'm going to go back and forth, Jacob, between was and is when I talk about Charlie, because, was is so past tense to me. And I feel like Charlie is such a presence every day for me that I often refer to him in the present. So he's right by my side. He's by all of us, and his spirit's really kind of guiding everything that we do. So going back to 2019, around the middle of his 7th grade year, he started when he was a pitcher. And he started to complain of sort of like these back pains and just a generally unfeeling well kind of feeling. He's like, Mom, I just don't feel like myself. And, I took him to his annual checkup in 7th grade, and the pediatrician said, oh, growing pains, and I'm sure you experienced this in middle school. You kind of go in a kid and you come out like a young man, you grow so much. So we obviously, focused on what he was saying to us. But after that wellness exam, we just said, this might just be part of growing pains, like what you're feeling. And then you also play sports. And because he was a pitcher and sort of that repetitive motion of pitching and your lower back, and, you're kind of doing the same motion over and over again, he had this lower back pain. It would come and go. And so midway through spring, his pitching was a little bit off, and his middle school teacher, who happened to, be the coach for the middle school team, said, there's something going on with him. Like something's off. And, we took that to heart, and fast forward to May, he just kept saying, my back hurts. So we took him to our chiropractor, and the chiropractor said, I think there's something going on in his sacrum. Maybe he pinched a nerve. Why don't you, come in for some adjustments, and it would give him relief. So there was this ebb and flow of pain and then feeling okay. It was really kind of this puzzle, this giant question mark all spring of that year. And we also started doing acupuncture because we thought maybe with the pitching, he was having spasms, and the acupuncture would help, but again, the pain would come back. So by the end of May into June, he was sitting on the sidelines a lot. He just really didn't want to play, but he was a competitor, and it frustrated him, and he wanted to push through the pain. And in June, right before Father's Day, he had a tournament with my husband, Mark. And they went down to this tournament, and he was in excruciating pain. Nothing that Tylenol or Advil could really help. So that prompted a visit to a sports medicine doctor that we got from Charlie's pitching coach. He said, maybe you should just get an X-ray. Let's just see what's going on. And my husband took him in, and he came back from that appointment with the details from the X-ray, and the parting words from the sports medicine doctor was, I'm going to pray for your son, and I'd like to refer you to an oncologist. So that's sort of when the floor gave way, and we were completely blindsided and couldn't believe the words that we were hearing. So we were quickly whisked into a fabulous hospital by us called Hackensack University Medical Center, where a slew of tests were run on Charlie. They did a biopsy, and some initial reports kind of came back that they thought it was a blue cell tumor. They weren't sure if it was lymphoma or Ewing sarcoma, but they said we were probably dealing with one of those two cancers. And by the end of the day, they had the diagnosis. It was very quick, and they pulled the biopsy, and it did reveal that he did, in fact, have Ewing sarcoma in the pelvis. This was about 4 o'clock on a Friday, and we sat down with the oncologist and the nurse practitioner, and they said, but that's not everything. The disease has also metastasized to his lungs. So, as a parent, as a patient, which I'm sure you can relate to, you feel like someone's speaking in foreign tongue. You just can't believe what you're hearing. But it's serious. But what I held on to in that appointment was something that the nurse practitioner said to me, which was such a ray of sunshine. She said, listen, Ewing sarcoma, this is metastatic Ewing sarcoma, but this disease is treatable and it's curable. So right from the get-go, we had this hope and, we can treat, this is treatable. So very quickly we put on, the armor of, all right, we're going to, get into this fight, and we never looked back. And, when a cancer diagnosis doesn't discriminate, as we found out, you can be a child, you can be an adult. He was 12 at the time. And we had no time to really process the information. So we were very lucky to have friends who recommended that we go to Memorial Sloan Kettering. They had a lot of expertise in treating Ewing sarcoma, which is a soft tissue cancer that can affect the surrounding tissue of the bones and the bones itself. It's a very rare cancer. It affects probably 300 kids. The bullseye age is typically 15, but babies can get it and people upwards of 40 years old. So there is a range, but I'm not going to call it the sweet spot, but the common age is really 14, 15. So Charlie had just turned 13. We went into MSK, and we quickly entered a world that was foreign and scary, but we had to ramp up quickly. And it was, once you hear Ewing sarcoma, you can't unhear it. We had never heard of it. It had never entered our world before. And we had to learn very quickly kind of the protocol, which is MSK, Memorial Sloan Kettering, does a year-long protocol. So they spread it out over a year. Charlie was able to attend school. The year-long protocol involved several rounds of chemo. I think, I really should have this written down in front of me, but it's such a blur. Multiple rounds of chemotherapy, and then you have a decision to make once you're at kind of the 3-month mark, whether or not you want to do surgery or radiation. So when Charlie started his chemotherapy, they very quickly noticed that the tumor, which was the size of a coconut at onset, went down within 3 months to the size of a walnut. So, we thought we were cautiously optimistic. We're like, wow, this treatment is really working, but it came at a cost. And what I mean by that is the toxicity and the feeling horrible, like you've been hit by a Mack truck. He was very nauseous, very tired. The medications are very strong, and we learned at the beginning of this whole journey that the medicines that he was receiving, these were 40-year-old medications. So they were developed 40 years ago. The protocol had not changed, and we were dealing with very toxic drugs. So Charlie, really ran through the gamut of not only emotions and just being, 13 at the time, and just normal teenage emotions, but just the physicality of the disease was really intense. But I think the guiding force for him, and the thing that kind of got him through, was really not only a strong community, which we'll talk about, and endless support, but really his love for sports, and that kind of that Mamba mentality that, Kobe Bryant is so famous for, that no quit, being a competitor, feeling like you're just going to show up and show out and get it done. So Charlie kind of put his head down. He motored through it. He mowed down his treatments like a champ. The 3-month mark hits. We're seeing so much progress. He's doing great. But we had this decision to make: radiation versus surgery to remove, the initial tumor in his pelvis. And what that meant for him was a complete removal of sort of the pelvic area. So he would have had a floating pelvis. They would have removed all of the tissue that had been touched, had come anywhere near the cancer. That was really difficult, that decision, whether or not to do radiation or to do surgery. It really would have been life-changing for him. He would not have been able to play baseball and really pursue sports, and that was a huge decision, which a lot of Ewing sarcoma patients do face, the surgery or the radiation. After a lot of soul searching, a lot of praying, we made the collective decision with his team to move forward with the radiation. So what that entailed for him was proton radiation therapy, which is targeted radiation into the pelvic area. He also received multiple rounds of radiation in his lungs. And on the back end of the treatment, so the following September, he was done with treatment. It ended, and they end with, they kind of whitewashed the lungs with one final kind of zap of radiation. So we're fast forwarding a year. He's now in his 8th grade year, and he's deemed NED, which is no evidence of disease. So, we're just exhausted, drained. I know that you can relate to this feeling, and I know every Ewing sarcoma patient's journey is different, but the feeling of relief, exhaustion, and joy, you can't, it's indescribable. Charlie had 4 pretty uneventful months, but was very lethargic. He just did not seem right. He was, in remission, quote unquote, but it didn't feel like remission. It felt, I don't know, he just wasn't still back to himself. And they said it was really, the toxicity of what he had been through, the arsenal of drugs. And so we kind of kept an eye on him, but he resumed his normal activities and went back to school. Fast forward January of the following year, 2021. I think I'm missing a year here somewhere along the way. But he had a year-long protocol. He had 4 months of no evidence of disease. And then one night he was playing Xbox with friends and in the other room, and he had a seizure. And we ran in, and he had a seizure. We brought him back to the hospital, and they said that this disease had in fact returned, and he had two mets in his brain. So it had come back, and it had come back in his brain. From there, it was really an uncharted path. And I think the thing with Ewing sarcoma, if it's localized, I'm not minimalizing anything that you go through with localized Ewing sarcoma. I know what you went through, Jacob, and I know the journey that you went through. But when you have metastatic Ewing sarcoma, your chances for survival decrease. It's more challenging to treat. And when it comes back, the recurrent metastatic Ewing sarcoma, it's even more difficult. So we were kind of dealt with a very sort of uncharted path. It was where we had that, year-round protocol. We had our marching orders when he was diagnosed. This was, we're going to try different off-the-shelf drugs to try to treat this. We went through 4 different lines of treatments. We did a CAR T-cell immunotherapy trial at Seattle Children's, which was kind of a Hail Mary since he had blown through a lot of lines of treatment. The CAR T-cell immunotherapy treatment, while we thought was looking encouraging, in fact, did not work for Charlie. He came home from Seattle after being there for about 7 weeks with our family, and he died the following week at MSK. So that was Charlie's journey, and I'm talking about the medical portion of the journey. There was a whole other side to this, which was the emotional and the fighter in him, and how he showed up, and he just wanted to bring this disease to its knees. It's an emotional roller coaster, as you know, and there's so many highs and so many lows, and we just tried to control what we could control, and we tried to make the most of every day. And it looked good for some days. It looked great, and other days it didn't. And the day before Charlie died, we were told he needed to go into hospice, and it was very abrupt. We had hope. As a mother, I had hope until the very end that sort of this miraculous recovery was going to take place, and I held on to that optimism. I was never the one to go on WebMD and go down the rabbit hole of Ewing sarcoma and look at the statistics. That wasn't good for me mentally. But, the reality was that this is where we were. He was going into hospice, and, he said to his dad, Dad, what's next? We've tried all these things, like, how are they going to fix this? And my husband said, buddy, we can't fix it. There's nothing else we can do. So that was a gut-wrenching moment. And that's something that no patient should ever have to hear, that there are no more options. It's just wrong. It's 2024. We should be able to figure this out. There should be more options, plain and simple. So before Charlie passed, he said, Mom, Dad, give me my phone. I want to post something. And Mark and I kind of looked at one another, and we were like, we don't think that's a good idea. We're not sure. We didn't know what he was going to post. We all knew what was going on, but, it was an emotionally wrought moment. But he grabbed his phone, and he posted a picture of himself on the mound, the baseball mound. And the 3 words that he wrote was just, own the mound. And he died the next day. And, it's hard to talk about because it's, to this day, it's unimaginable that he's not here physically with us. It's just unimaginable. He was so charismatic. He had a huge smile. He had, a glimmer in his eye. He was fun. He was a life force, and he was all love and playfulness. And he was everything a mother could want in a son, and everything a sister could want in a brother, and everything a father could want in a son. And he was a great friend, and he was all those things. And it got taken from him. It really did. It got taken from him. But he left us with such a strong sort of mantra, which was own the mound. And about a week after he passed, we're still in this bewilderment, this phase of just unimaginable. And my husband looked at me. He's like, we should want to do a foundation. Do you want to, we have to do something. I've read often that grief is just leftover love, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing it, but grief is all about love. And, we had kind of one of two options. We could either kind of sink or swim. We just lost our son. It was devastating. But because of Charlie and his strength and his example, it wasn't an option for us not to kind of take the bull by the horns and say, okay, what can we do? Grief is nowhere to go, I think, and grief is really fueled by love. It's just, grief is love, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And we had so much grief and so much love for him that we turned that into the fuel that we needed to start this foundation. A couple of months before Charlie died, things were not looking great. And he said to me on a drive back from one of our doctor visits, he said, Mom, when I'm better from this, wouldn't it be it would be so cool to start a foundation. We should do comfort kits. Kids love merch, Mom. We should, put together packages, care packages of items that, I love, because maybe other kids would like them too. And I kind of squeezed his hand, and he was in the back seat laying down, and I grabbed his hand, and I was like, absolutely. When you're better, we are going to do comfort kits for other kids that have Ewing sarcoma, 100%. And so the week after he passed, that conversation kind of sprung into my head when my husband said we should start a foundation. And I was like, yes, we should do comfort kits, 100%, let's do them. So at that moment, Charlie kind of gave us the marching orders in a way, and we refer to him often as our honorary CEO, because he told us what he wanted us to do. And that was sort of how the Charlie Landers Foundation, that was sort of the genesis of the Charlie Landers Foundation and how it came to be. I've been talking for a long time, so I hope I'm answering your question. That was sort of a long answer.
Yeah, wow. That really touched me in a tough way. I started tearing up in the middle of that. I don't think I really ever got to hear his full story, especially from you, coming from his mom. Definitely had very different paths that we took. I never got radiation. I was dealt the easier hand. Mine was localized. My Ewing sarcoma was localized in my femur, which made it a lot easier to treat. But, man, Charlie was definitely a real fighter. I love how he played baseball and, just how he made that post right before he passed, own the mound. That, very powerful, I have to say. I feel like if I was in that situation, I would have just given up. He really did fight to the very end, and if he's listening, and I'm sure he's smiling down, listening to us, man, that's a positive and just a warm mindset all the way to the end.
Well, you contributed to that, Jacob, because your mom and I, it's funny, we never worked directly together years and years ago, but we had mutual friends in the advertising industry. And I learned about you on Facebook, and I realized that your mom and I had a friend in common. And anyway, your mom and I connected online, and I have to tell you that your journey really inspired Charlie. Charlie wanted to be around people who were winning, people who were overcoming. And he did not identify himself. He didn't identify as a cancer patient. He identified himself as a kid, a normal kid who was going through something and was going to beat it. And your story, we learned of you pretty early in his journey. And you were your example and the way you carried yourself with such grace and strength and the community that surrounded you and lifted you and your family up was such a strong example of, how we wanted to be. And we knew of two other people who had Ewing Sarcoma. When Charlie was diagnosed, they kind of came out of the woodwork. And one was a boy who lived just in another town and had localized Ewing in his cheek. He was also a baseball player. His name is Josh, and he would come over and spend hours with Charlie just talking to him about, tips on how to get through nausea, tips on, kind of what to focus on during scans, like having that scan anxiety, that awful feeling, things to focus on to feel like a boss, just to feel stronger. And, I really give him so much credit. I give you and your example, I give you so much thanks. And another boy who also had Ewing's, who was older, he was like a college-aged boy, and he had the same exact diagnosis as Charlie, which was the metastatic Ewing's in the pelvis and the lungs. And, he, at that point, was done with treatment and went on to college and was living his best life. So it was really important, and I think for all cancer patients, to surround yourself with positivity and with success stories, that can be you too. And as grim as the diagnosis or as challenging as a diagnosis might be, you have to look for hope. And we were so hopeful through the journey. We had so much hope that he was going to come out on top and beat this. And I think that helped him through really tough days, having hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope definitely helped me and my family. For sure. Through the tough days, just knowing that there is another side to this, and people do come out stronger, emerge stronger. And I looked at people when I was going through it, and I was in the midst of treatment and everything, and I just felt like I was in a dark tunnel. I couldn't see the other side, and I'm sure that's how you guys felt when Charlie was going through it. But knowing that there were people on the other side, people who were living after this diagnosis, it was very hard for me to believe going through it, but I see it now, and I want to be that mentor for others going through their journey.
I think it's so important to have examples like yourself and others who have been through hell and back, and they're still standing, and they're moving forward in life, and they're going on to lead productive and beautiful lives. So, and that's you, and that's amazing. And, I was thinking about you earlier today. I was trying to prepare for this call, and I kind of feel like you have your marching orders, right? Like you are doing kind of God's work on earth, and I feel like you've got a buddy up in heaven who's trying to help push awareness through his foundation, through you, and through the Charlie Landers Foundation, and through us, sort of as his soldiers, do what he would have wanted to do. His life was cut short, but he had so much more to give. And I think, your chapter, your cancer was one chapter in a long, beautiful life of many chapters, and so much that you have ahead of you. And I think Charlie's life was cut short, but there's so much more work that he was meant to do. And I think it's through this foundation, 100%.
Yeah, I 100% agree. If I didn't mention already, I said that our prior diagnosis was very similar. I was also a baseball player, and I was also a pitcher for my...
Oh.
I was, yeah. Before I was diagnosed, I played a lot of baseball. It was my main sport. And then I started to drift off into basketball. And I actually played in a basketball game about, I'd say, a week before I was diagnosed. And I remember feeling those pains, and I went to my pediatrician, who had also diagnosed me with growing pains. So I know exactly what you I know exactly what you guys went through. It's tough because that pain, I could tell you, I've had growing pains before that. I was 11 years old when I was diagnosed. So, like you were mentioning about the that common age, a little bit earlier, but I was definitely I knew that wasn't growing pains, and it killed me when I found out that I had the cancer. It was really tough. Just sports getting wiped away from me, my whole entire life shutting down, and you guys can relate to that. I mean, he seemed like a very active and a bright kid. I would have loved to meet him. He sounds awesome.
Oh, thank you. He was, and he is. And I think I would encourage anyone who's listening, who's going through a similar battle, that, to really just try and find those moments in your day. Maybe there's just one or two moments, but, the phrase win the day. And that was something that one of Mark's friends, Pat, a good family friend, was really big on winning the day. And to really understand what that means, I think no one can understand it better than someone who's going through cancer treatment. And despite what you might be going through, you might have the roughest treatment, but if there's one thing in your day that you can look forward to that brings you joy, you've won your day, right? So when Charlie was in treatment, all he wanted to do was go back and play baseball with his friends. And I'll never forget one day, he had a rough treatment. He felt awful, but all he wanted to do at 4:00 was go to baseball practice and play with his team. And we were like, okay, all right, if that's what you want to do. And we figured he would just kind of hang out in the bleachers and, partake a little bit, soft toss, just do what he could. When Mark came back an hour later, he was running sprints with the team. And Mark was really concerned. He was like, my God, what is he doing? He was really his mind was blown. And Charlie finished the sprints and he kind of fell into Mark's arms. And Mark said, Charlie, what are you doing? He goes, well, the team was doing sprints, so I sprinted. And I think the lesson there is that you have to normalize this experience, this unimaginable experience, as best you can, and you have to find normalcy, and you have to find moments to win the day. And win the day means something different for everyone. It could be, if you have a pet, just spending time with your pet, if it brings you joy, that you're winning the day, or you get to see your favorite movie, or you have your favorite ice cream, reward yourself. And that's a lesson for everyone. No matter what you're going through, whatever's affecting your life, if you can find just a little bit of joy in between hard times and hardship, it gets you through.
So you mentioned about the Charlie Landers Foundation that Charlie is the honorary CEO of. What kind of support and resources does the foundation provide to families and patients dealing with Ewing sarcoma? I know you mentioned the kits, which I've had a lot of people say that they love them.
Oh, that's great.
What do you think?
So, when we decided to do this foundation, we grabbed, really close friends and family, and we sat around our kitchen table, and we just had our first meeting, and we said, listen, we're all kind of reeling by what happened, but we have to do something. Everybody on that table felt the same way. We just have to do something to raise awareness, because just like we were talking about earlier, when you were diagnosed, when Charlie was diagnosed, nobody had ever heard of Ewing sarcoma. If you don't know, you don't know, right? So we felt like we wanted to come together and not only honor Charlie's wishes to do these comfort kits, but we noticed a real deficit in the amount of medications, the options, kind of just what we had gone through with Charlie. When we ran out of options, we realized that this was a 40-year-old antiquated protocol. It wasn't a big moneymaker, to be quite honest, for Big Pharma. And, the government, NCI, they were not allocating a lot of money for research and funding new clinical trials and research for Ewing sarcoma. And that's due to the rarity of the cancer. If 300 people are diagnosed, maybe that number is a little bit more, a little bit less, but that's a very, very concentrated small number of people in the world, right? I mean, you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning, I think, than getting Ewing sarcoma. That's the reality. So when we met as a team, we decided that we wanted to kind of take like a two-pronged approach. And we realized that we couldn't be all things to everyone. And while pediatric cancer in general is so awful and wrong and terrible, and while we want to help all pediatric cancers, we felt like we could make the biggest impact by focusing on what Charlie had and get it into the narrative, get it on people's radar and get eyes on Ewing sarcoma. So our mission, we established it pretty early on. It was to raise awareness, provide support to pediatric and young adult patients diagnosed, and fund research, which ultimately creates a lasting cure for Ewing sarcoma. So, the real mission statement is like the Charlie Landers Foundation was inspired by Charlie's resolve to strike out Ewing sarcoma forever. And again, there's that kind of baseball underpinning. That's really our focus. And when we started the foundation in 2019, I'll say in April, we decided, since we didn't really know anything about the research and the science behind everything that goes into trying to find cures and better outcomes for Ewings, we quickly need to establish a medical advisory board. So we reached out to our beloved MSK, Memorial Sloan Kettering sarcoma team. Charlie's doctor, Dr. Paul Myers, is a wonderful human doctor, researcher, scientist. He wears a lot of hats at MSK. And so he was our first ask to come on board and be part of our medical advisory board. So he agreed, graciously agreed, as did Dr. Michael Kinnaman, who was also one of Charlie's doctors. We met him when Charlie had the reoccurrence. He is a wonderful human. He's also part of our team. And our nurse practitioner, who became like family, and I'm sure you can relate how nurse practitioners just become like your second mom, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So we asked Nurse Jessie Hennessy, to come on board, and she also agreed. And then we also asked Dr. Damon Reed, who was at the Moffitt Center at the time, but was coming up to New York to also work at MSK. I believe did you have Dr. Patrick Rohar at CHOP? Was he one of your doctors?
I did not.
Okay. He is also on our board. And then we also asked Dr. Ian Davis from UNC Chapel Hill, UNC Lineberger. So we have kind of a diversified group of doctors from different hospitals and areas of the country, and we did that intentionally. We wanted to get different opinions and thoughts. And when we decided to focus on raising money for research, we felt like we wouldn't know, what the best options were and what to fund. So we established the medical advisory board to help us make those decisions on, when we opened up our first grant cycle, which was last year, we were very, very happy to receive about 13 submissions from researchers all over the country. And we even had a couple from overseas to submit some applications for grants. So what they do for us is kind of go through and feel and kind of vet which ones they feel have the best chance for having impact to affect and help Ewing sarcoma patients. So last year, out of 13, we wanted to fund all of them, right? Because every idea and thought towards the battle against Ewings is, we need to hear it loud and clear and just support everyone that's focused on Ewings. But we were able to fund 4. And then this year we had our second grant cycle and we're able to fund 3. And we just did a direct donation to UNC Lineberger to fund research around Ewing sarcoma there. So that's really how we support Ewing's patients. We really focus hard on the research. One thing we're going to be doing this year is opening up, and Dr. Michael Kinnaman suggested that we do this because when he was a young researcher, a young research investigator, he's like, you have to get the young investigators' eyes on this disease. You have to get people focused on Ewing sarcoma. So he suggested that we open up a grant, which we'll do this year for just for young investigative researchers to throw their hat in the ring and send in a proposal. So that's exciting. That's something that that we'll be doing in this fall. So that's the research piece. And then the comfort kits is really a way for us to kind of directly reach Ewing's patients in treatment. And I can remember distinctly many times where Charlie was just, sick of the hospital food. He loved the child life specialists, but he didn't want to play games, and he didn't want to, do crafts, or he didn't want to do sing-alongs. He was also a teenager. So he was like, they would always find something for him to do, which was, most oftentimes Xbox. But, he loved getting merch. Charlie loved merch. So with these comfort kits, we kind of went through all the things that he loved. He loved getting massages, and he liked heat packs. So we made sure to stick a heat pack in there, a warm, cozy blanket, a hydro flask, an Amazon gift card, and deck of cards, and a journal, and like a baseball, like stress ball. We've had some other items added, but, just stuff that if we can just allow a patient to, or give the patient just 5 minutes of a break, if in reality, and make them smile, and we do funny socks, stuff like that, then, they won the day, or we help them win a moment in their day. And those are really the two things we focus on, the comfort kits and the research. And we've allocated about $800,000 towards research. And we are now in 50 hospitals across the U.S., and we're up to about 750 comfort kits.
That's awesome. So it seems that even though these kits are helping children through their journey and their treatment, very much focused on the research side as well. And it's also a tribute to Charlie. Everything that he wanted and liked is in these kits, and every single kid benefits from these comfort kits.
We hope so. And, there's a whole other demographic of these young adolescent patients too, right? People that are in their mid-20s. And oftentimes in clinic, because it's a pediatric cancer, these patients are getting treated in the pediatric units. So, some of these hospitals now have lounges for teens and people in their 20s and even older. And I think that's important too, right? Because, when you were diagnosed, you weren't a baby. You were a almost teenager, and it's, I think it's really important to recognize that while it's a pediatric cancer, it also affects, older people as well through their 40s. And we make sure that the kits are relevant and well liked by really patients of any age. And that's really important.
This is definitely a very wonderful organization that helps a lot of people, kids, adults, and just overall Ewing sarcoma because of cancer research. So how can people get involved or support the Charlie Landers Foundation and its mission to help strike out, as Charlie would say, Ewing sarcoma?
By making donations to, we're not the only Ewing Sarcoma Foundation. And I think it's really important to point out that when you get diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, you realize how small the universe is, and you meet a lot of families that have Ewings. And, we have been fortunate enough to meet other foundations, Little Warrior being one of them out in Wisconsin, the Eli Sunshine Fund, which is a newer foundation that was created by Eli's family. He also had Ewing sarcoma and was treated at MSK, but there's strength in numbers. And, by supporting foundations that directly impact Ewing sarcoma patients, I think that's a way that you can really kind of like pay it forward and help out. So I think getting Ewing sarcoma into the dialogue of pediatric cancer, raising awareness, just being vocal about, what it is. And, a rare cancer is anything but rare to someone who's going through it. So, just spotlighting and trying to shed light on if you've had an experience with a rare cancer, just trying to get it into the dialogue, because I think the more people hear about it, the more people kind of get involved in it, and they want to change. They want to see change, and they want, the U.S. government and, the NCI to put more money towards pediatric cancers. But to get involved with the Charlie Landers Foundation, I think one of the great ways that you can is not only to volunteer for some of our events. We're in the tri-state area. We're in New Jersey, near New York and Connecticut. But, volunteering for our events or doing an event on your own. Let's say you live in California. We have a lot of family in California, and, they're going to be doing a run or a hike and raising money that then, goes to, let's say, our foundation, where every dollar and every penny, we have no overhead. Every dollar goes in support of the two initiatives that I mentioned, which is research for Ewing Sarcoma and the Comfort Kits. So, making sure that if you are supporting a foundation, that the money is in fact going to what you hope it goes to. I think that's really important. And for every dollar spent against cancer, only 4 cents to the dollar is for pediatric cancer. So that is a crime in and of itself, that 4 cents of every dollar that is funded for cancer goes to pediatric cancer. That's just wrong. And a lot of people don't know that. So, really just kind of creating awareness, getting involved, doing mini fundraisers, and really just supporting people that are going through it. I'm sure you can name so many people that showed up for you and showed out and did things to support you in your journey. So I think the best way to really support someone going through what you went through, what Charlie went through, is being a friend, being a good listener, offering a helping hand, and getting involved in a way that you're comfortable. And one of the ways that people can really help is by donating blood. I think that's really important, and people don't realize that it doesn't have to be a monetary donation. It can be donating blood, because, I don't know if you had to deal with lots of blood transfusions and all of that, but when you're neutropenic and your counts are low and you need blood, sometimes there are shortages, and that's really scary if a patient does not have blood. So go looking on the American Cross website, finding out where local blood drives are. That is a huge way to help people who have cancer.
Yeah, I can tell you I had a lot of blood transfusions. Like, after every single round of chemo that I went through, I would have so many blood transfusions. I'd be in the hospital every other day because my levels were so low. And my platelet levels were low, so I needed to get a lot of platelet transfusions, which I found out I was allergic to platelets.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, it was definitely a journey. I would have to take, I think, like Benadryl before every single time I get platelets. It was a big mess. But there's so many other ways to get involved in these lives of cancer patients, and I think that's very, very important to know.
Yes, 100%.
So, throughout my journey, there was a big word that I'd say that I would stress a lot, and that word is community. So what role does community involvement play in the success of the Foundation's initiatives?
Oh, community is everything. You hear that expression so often, it takes a village, but there's such truth to that. And, when a child, when an adult, when anyone is affected by cancer, if you have a community that rallies around you, you're blessed. And we were blessed. We live in a close-knit community. We had so many people show up for us, and it was people that we not only knew, some people we didn't even know, but when people heard about Charlie's struggle, this was also during COVID. So Charlie went through treatment during COVID-19, and it's very isolating, COVID, for anyone. And when you're a cancer patient, it's even more so. But, during his journey, I can't stress enough how amazing our community was. We had not only the schools, all of Charlie's teachers. One in particular, Sue Leonard. She was Charlie's 7th grade English teacher, and she tutored him at home while he was going through treatment. Joanne Irwin, another one, just an angel sent to us. She also tutored Charlie in math. We had the community of teachers, Joe Kaiser at FAM's Franklin Lakes Middle School. And then when Charlie, went into high school while in treatment, he had an amazing guidance counselor, and then the school that was just integral to kind of keeping things normal for him. And when we say community, it was the baseball community. Charlie's pitching coach, Tom Atley, and Teals, just phenomenal baseball organizations and clubs local to us. They came out in droves to support Charlie. Charlie's baseball coach, Garrison Ward at Ramapo High School. All of these people just showed up. Our priest, Father John Job, and then all of Charlie's friends, really, really rallied. And, when we started doing events after Charlie passed, those same people just continued to show up and help. And Charlie had an incredible group of friends that are very active on all of our events, and they volunteer. And we have about 5 events each year. So that's really how we raise money for research and comfort kits. We do 4 or 5 local events, everything from Oktoberfest, which is coming up on October 19th, a little plug, in Franklin Lakes. We do runs in the summer. We do a pickle paddle palooza, which is at the Indian Trail Club local to us. And we do a golf outing every year, and we do a clay shooting event. So there's different pockets of communities that kind of support our different events. But the community, we're hoping, will kind of shapeshift a little bit and grow. And as we spread awareness with the Charlie Landers Foundation, we're hoping that we get some corporate sponsorships and donors that can really help with the longevity of the foundation. We kind of feel like we're in this for the long haul, and we don't want to plateau and kind of, die out. We want to be a resource for Ewing sarcoma patients for the long haul, and we're looking for ways to grow, to raise awareness, and to really spread the message. But I think it all really starts with your hometown, and Charlie was really blessed to have an amazing hometown support. And also I haven't mentioned, the other unsung hero, which is Charlie's sister, Annie. Family community is so important. And I know that you have sisters as well. And it's, to have a sibling who's also going through your cancer journey right along with you. She was incredible and continues to just be an eternal optimist and just wonderful. And she helps out however she can with our initiatives. But community really is at the epicenter of everything that we do. So, yeah, community is everything.
I can't stress that enough. Community is everything. You heard it from me. You hear it from Lisa. Community is everything. So I would definitely say your family is so strong and has a lot of knowledge in the field of Ewing sarcoma. What advice would you give to families who are currently facing a diagnosis of Ewing sarcoma?
That's tough. I think number one, I would not go down the rabbit hole of WebMD and go online, and I would meet with your care team, and I would just have open, honest dialogue. I mean, our doctors never sugarcoated that this would be an easy protocol to get through. We knew that it would be challenging, but I think at the core, you have to just listen to the experts and listen to your care team. And the biggest advice would be, though, to just remain hopeful. Again, Ewing sarcoma is curable. It is treatable. There are a lot of success stories, and every patient is different. So just because someone did not have a successful outcome does not mean that you won't have a successful outcome, right? Like you have to just stay in your own lane and focus on your treatment. And And it's really one day at a time. I think that's really important, because when you're handed that stack, that thick stack of papers, which is your protocol, and you get that booklet, it's pretty mind-blowing. It seems like it's going to be never ending, and it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, like you were saying. But if you break it up into little increments and pieces, like it takes a whole year to get through the year-round protocol for Ewing sarcoma, or 9 months in some hospitals, but typically a year. If you just take one day at a time and control what you can control, and find ways to continue in the activities that make you feel good and make you just normalize your experience, that's the only way to go. Because there's no reason why you can't have fun and do the things you love to do. Maybe if there's some physical limitations, yes, there will be challenges there. But if you can find, just little moments along the way to just enjoy life, to take time out with your family, to not be in that mindset of fight all the time, and smile and laugh, then laughing is the best medicine. We all know that. You have to find ways to just have a sense of humor. And we did a lot of dark comedy in our house. We're like, oh, don't mind us, like, don't mind the pity party, or, we would just joke around. We had that angry cat. We would take the angry cat and be like, oh, someone's having a bad day, and they'd get the angry cat, Like, you just have to kind of find ways to keep things light. And it's not going to be fixed in a day. It's having cancer and getting through treatment is a process, but you just have to focus on the finish line, and you'll get through it. You just have to give yourself grace and patience.
And that's not just advice for Ewing sarcoma. That's advice for everyone who has cancer, every family going through cancer, and advice for, quite frankly, everyone who's going through a difficult time. That is, we are all similar in the way that we have to persevere through challenges.
You just can't take everything so seriously, right? Life is hard enough. And I think it's hard being a teenager. If I go back to kind of, Charlie dealing with this as an adolescent, as a teenager, it's hard enough, right? And then you get cancer and you're like, really? And we would just have moments where we'd look at each other and I'd say, let's take a day off from cancer. Do you want to, go get a t-shirt? Like, he loved t-shirt shopping. Like, he loved, he loved certain foods, he loved atomic wings, so we'd have the food in the hospital, and he's like, I can't do hospital food anymore. And I would DoorDash, wings, or you have to just carry on as normal as possible, to get through it. You just have to. And no matter what your circumstances are, you got to just keep it light, because that's the only way to do it.
I can go for a good plate of wings right about now.
I know, it's lunchtime, right?
It is. And
the other thing I just want to mention, we were really, really fortunate. Again, this kind of goes back to the whole baseball thing. And when you talk about advice on how to get through tough times, I think, again, we're a sports family. Charlie certainly, loved baseball. I find it ironic in the most beautiful way that in one of our board meetings, one of our board members, Derek and Lynn, two of them suggested or made the analogy to Charlie and Charlie Brown, in that Charlie Brown was, a lover of sports. He would always root for the underdog. He had an amazing circle of friends. He's a compassionate person who kind of wore his heart on his sleeve. And really cared about people and had a sense of humor, so kind of a self-deprecating sense of humor, but that's Charlie Brown. And, Derek mentioned in the meeting, wouldn't it be amazing if we could do something with Charlie Brown or Peanuts? Like, if the stars align, like, wouldn't that be amazing? And, Lynn was able to kind of carve out a path to get us to Peanuts worldwide and put us in touch with the decision makers there, who allowed us to use Charlie Brown and the phrase "on the mound" on some licensed merchandise that we give now to patients in the comfort kits. So the fact that, Charlie is aligned with Charlie Brown, and Charlie Brown is helping us spread awareness of Ewing sarcoma, that is a win for a lifetime for us, because I can't think of any better symbol of friendship, compassion, and hope. And and an example of just winning the day, other than Charlie Brown.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we hop off, I just want to say thank you for joining me today. It's been great to learn more about Charlie's story and, quite frankly, to raise awareness for Ewing sarcoma.
Absolutely. And, again, Jacob, thank you for everything you're doing to help push that forward because, again, a lot of people have never heard of it. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And I think it motivates a lot of people to get involved and help us, with this cause of raising awareness and making it better for patients and individuals just like yourself and Charlie.
Before we sign off, is there anything else that you would want our listeners to know about your family, Charlie, or just anything in general?
Just that we're in it for the long haul, and, not a day goes by where we don't think of Charlie. But again, he's really our fuel, and he's the reason behind everything we do. And, we're really committed to helping patients as best we can. And, we're hoping that we'll see change. We're hoping that we're going to see more options and treatments and better outcomes for patients with Ewing sarcoma. That's certainly our life's work now. So we're in it. We're in it for the long haul.
Charlie is an amazing individual, and I want to say is because I can feel his spirit and his presence here today as I'm talking to you. And truly, own the mound. Own the mound, everyone. That is the motto that I'm going to be using a lot now. If you don't mind, this has been great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Jacob. Take care.
Bye-bye. This week's motivational tip: share your story. Your story is more powerful than you might realize. We all face challenges in life, whether they are personal struggles, health battles, or seemingly insurmountable goals. The journey through these challenges is often filled with highs and lows, moments of doubt and triumphs that might seem small, but are monumental in the grand scheme of things. When you share your story, you're not just recounting your experiences, but you're giving others a roadmap for their own journeys. You show them that it's okay to struggle, to face setbacks, and to feel lost at times. But most importantly, you demonstrate that with perseverance, determination, and hope, it's possible to overcome even the toughest of obstacles. Think about a time when you were inspired by someone else's story. Their words may have given you the strength to keep going when you wanted to give up, or provided the reassurance that you weren't alone in what you were experiencing. By sharing your own story, you can be that source of strength and reassurance for someone else. The beauty of sharing your story lies in its authenticity. People connect with real, raw experiences, those moments of vulnerability and resilience. It's in these moments that we find common ground and draw inspiration. Your story doesn't have to be one of grand achievements. Even small victories, like finding the courage to take the first steps or learning to navigate through adversity, can be a profound impact on someone else's life. So don't be afraid to speak up about your journey. Whether you've overcome a significant challenge, achieved a long-term goal, or are still in the midst of your journey, your story has the power to inspire others to persevere, to believe in themselves, and to keep moving forward, no matter how tough things may seem. Remember, your experiences, both the struggles and the successes, are a testament to the strength of the human spirit, and by sharing them, you may just help someone find their own strength. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Together, we can spread positivity and make a difference. Join me next time for more incredible stories and insights. Until then, stay motivated and keep pushing forward. Thank you for listening, and see you next time on the Motivational Mic.